it's not to me. So I would say if an all-being and all-knowing God sat next to me and said, well, you can't know my mind, I would say, if you're all-powerful, you better make me understand, because I can't live with that. I mean, I don't know. It's fun to play with, but to sit here and try and say that you don't understand the mind of God, or you can't know my mind to understand this plan, I would probably just say, can you please try? I mean, you're all powerful.
And with that, listeners, we're going to take a little short break. We'll have a little advertisement here.
Hey everybody, this is X.
And I'm Kyle.
And I'm Felicia. We're the Utah Outcasts.
3 out, unashamed, and active atheists living in Utah.
And we are personally inviting you to let us love your ears each and every week.
As we take the news, current events, and pop culture and give it a little twist.
A love twist, with consent.
And we'll be joined each week by a special guest to tell us what makes them an outcast like us.
Come find us.
The Utah Outcasts.
On podhell.com, Stitcher, iTunes, Google Play,
Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube.
And on UtahOutcast.com.
We finally bought that domain off the kids handing out mixtapes in the mall.
Come be an outcast with us.
Take care of yourselves out there.
Bonne nuit.
And you're welcome.
And welcome back. That was a great break. So now we're gonna shift gears a little bit, Bobby, because even though you have the interest in the paranormal, and even though you're not a believer anymore in Christianity, there's something else recently in your life that, shall we say, has been dominating most of the things that you've been doing.
Yes.
And that's going into the legal field. Now, when we add up previous Christian, previous paranormal believer, turning into a atheist, into a non-believer in the paranormal, you are now trying to go into law. Now, if I do a mathematical equation and I get down to the equal point, what am I missing to get to the point where you're wanting to get into the legal profession?
Actually, it has to do with what sparked my interest in law was that for a while there on the show, we were covering a bunch of stories where people have no idea what the First Amendment is. People seem to think that the First Amendment, the portion of freedom of speech, means that I can say whatever I want to you, but you can't criticize what I just said. And I get that almost every day. I get it all the time. So just recently, I don't know if I told the story, but it was a big boss at my work comes up to me, and I don't know if he purposely did this to stir the pot or to get an angry conversation going, but
you did share this.
Did I share this?
So again, listeners, just go back into the archives. They're at strangefrequency.net. Go back, I think it was maybe 4 weeks ago. And maybe listen there. They have pretty meticulous show notes. So again, like I said, just go to strangefrequenciesradio.net and just search. Hell, click on one of them. You'll have some fun no matter what. But anyway, so there's a big boss that.
And basically, he starts talking politics, which is a favorite subject of mine. And one of the things that he says is something along the lines of the thing about liberals is that they always want to criticize, our views. And, we're just expressing our freedom of speech. And I said something along the lines of the back. I was like, do you know how freedom of speech works? I go, you can have an opinion and I can have an opinion about your opinion. It doesn't mean that your opinion just goes unchallenged. If you have an idea or a belief system and you express it and I think it's dumb, my freedom of speech is that's dumb. And
damn shocking.
And for some reason, that's a hard concept for people to grasp. I don't get it. There's certain things that I've discovered amongst people that like politics, like ghost hunting, and like religion. They all have these certain things that it's so impossible to grasp. For example, in another thing in the religious field that is so hard for people to grasp is that they like to think that we evolved from chimps. And monkeys. And I don't understand how many times you can say evolution doesn't say we evolved from chimps. It says that somewhere along or monkeys, somewhere down the line, we had a common ancestor. It's the ascent of man picture that people get thrown off of. And you have to say, well, you got to think of it like a tree. We branched off somewhere down the line, because I actually got in this very argument today. I got in this, somebody posted this picture and they had the ascent of man, and they had the chimp-like creature, and it says, today there's millions of these. And then it went over to the human, and it said, today there's millions of these. And then it said, but there's none of these in the middle. And then it had a bunch of question marks. And I said, well, first of all,
there is.
First of all,
there is.
There's billions of humans. There's not just millions.
I wasn't going to quibble over
no, that's where the trolling comes in. And then, I sat there and I had to give this guy a very, 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 watered down, evolutionary, biology course, and, just explain very simply that that's not what evolution says, guy. And, if you think it does, you need to go back and read, because it never says that we directly evolved from monkeys. Because if that were true, then you could actually say, well, if we evolved from monkeys, then why are there still monkeys? Things like that drive me absolutely insane, because I'm not saying that I'm some type of evolutionary biologist. I'm not a constitutional scholar, but there are certain things that are just so easy to understand that the only reason why you can't is because you're willfully ignorant. That's the only answer to it.
That's exactly the point, is because you're not an evolutionary biologist and you still get it.
Right.
That's how easy it is.
It's so frustrating. It's as frustrating as talking to somebody and you bring up I won't get too deep into politics, but one of the things that I discuss constantly at my work, if you just bring up a liberal or a Democrat, the very first thing the far right will say, yeah, they just want to take away your guns. I go, where do you get these ideas? That's never been proposed. I don't understand why these are hard concepts to grasp. You guys are just making things up and then pretending like they're real. It's very frustrating.
Now, you do realize we're doing the same thing that you and Jason do over at StrangeFrequency.net, is we've gone off on this tangent. Let me redirect. Okay,
you know what? Sometimes those are the best conversations to have.
They are. They really are. And you already know that I'm enjoying it, because you already know my tone. So, well, let's transition to the next thing on the LSAT, our legal drive for you to want to go into that. So we went from the big boss not understanding what the First Amendment, and probably take the Second Amendment out of context.
Oh yes,
wildly. So how does that drive you to actually go and take the LSAT, which is not something very easy to do, whether or not we actually, as normal laymen think, lawyers are just, leeches on the population, which I know that's a wildly divisive way to explain them. But how does that motivate you to actually want to study and be tested on this kind of thing?
Sure. So first of all, the LSAT is a very different type of test than normal, test that you would take to get into grad school, like the GRE or something like that. Where this test,
I take it's like the SAT, but with the L, which would mean law, right? So
the LSAT actually does not ask you any law questions. The LSAT asks you questions there's 5 sections of the LSAT. There are 2 logic reasoning sections. There's an experimental section that does not get graded, but you will not know what section is the experimental section unless so there's also a reading comprehension, there's a logic games, and then there's a writing sample. So only 5 of those 6 will get graded. Well, actually the writing sample doesn't get graded. It's used as like if 2 people score really close and they're kind of like, damn, who do we take? All right, pull out the writing sample and let's take a look at that. So for example, if you open it up and you have 2 logic game sections, and you won't know which one is the one that's going to be graded. Or if there's 3 logic reasoning sections, you won't know what 2 out of the 3 is being graded and so on.
So that makes you have to really focus on what you're doing.
Yes. And it's very frustrating. Studying for it sucks because, for example, I try to do 5 to 10 logic games a day. And what will be very frustrating is that I will ace like 5 in a row, and then I'll get the next 5 completely wrong. So it's like
I'd like to just break in there. We're not talking about Sudoku.
No.
Can you give us can you give me within a minute? Give me a real quick logic game to test my knowledge.
No, they're not that simple.
Just real quick.
They're not that simple.
Oh,
I mean, logic games probably take just one will probably take the easiest ones probably take about 5 minutes, and the harder ones probably can take up to 11 to 12 minutes to finish.
And how many of these a day do you say you're doing?
I try to do 5 to 10 a day.
So we're talking upwards of what, 60 to an hour and a half?
Just on logic games, and then I try and do other sections as well. The only one that I'm pretty confident in is reading comprehension. The other ones get very difficult. I mean, there'll be things like they'll say like there's 7 people that are in an auditorium, and each one has to speak one after another. However, there are only 5 spots available, and Sarah cannot go before Kim, and Kim cannot go before Dan. And if Dan is on stage, then we also know Carol is. But if Carol's on stage, then Jim is not. And then you have to solve these questions. So then you'll go to the next question. The next question will be, okay, so if we know that Dan is on stage, what is the logical order that the next 4 out of the 5 can follow? And then you have to sit there and you have to try and figure it out. And sometimes, you'll look at the question, you go, what? Or they have different types. They have grouping games. They have in and out games where they have, they have linear games, sequencing games. I mean, they have hybrid games. And some of them are really easy, like the ones that take like 5 minutes. You can get through it, and then you'll just get stumped with one, and you're like, I don't even know how to set up the game board.
I've already failed the LSAT. So if that's a representation of a simple question, just listening to you, and I'm actually better at listening than I am reading. Yeah, I just failed. But anyways, I'm sorry. Great example, but I just failed. So
I'm taking the LSAT on Saturday, and I know they say you have to go in there with confidence, but I'm not that confident. It's a very mentally taxing thing, and I'll be happy when it's over.
To be sure. And I will say this much, and I don't even know, are you actually, I know you're doing this for just the intellectual, that it taxes you that way, and that scratches a certain itch for you. Are you actually going to try to capitalize on this at all, or are you just doing this for the mental stimulation?
No, you see,
I actually get the mental stimulation side more from you than I do anything else.
My father-in-law is a lawyer, and ever since me and my wife have been together for 15 years, so ever since I've known him, we have talked law, and he's very excited for me to go into the law profession, because he has 3 children, and he kind of, hinted that he wanted them to go, but he never really forced it on them. He let them make their own decisions in life. So he's really excited. So we talk about it even more now. But he's been saying things along the line. He owns his own practice, and he's been saying things along the lines like, I'm really anxious for you to pass the bar, because boy, do I have a lot of grunt work for you to do. So, so I think that means possible job opportunity right away. But I will try to make a living off of it. Yeah, absolutely.
But I actually would I'm asking you an honest question here. Is it just and be honest with me, Bobby, do you like the mental taxation?
Absolutely.
It's actually stressing you out?
No, I do. I thrive off of it, actually.
That's kind of what I thought. So I just wanted to drag that out there from you.
Yeah,
Because,
I'm
you
one
know,
of these guys where I'll get really frustrated